In each of the following weighted voting systems, determine which players, if any, have veto power. Complete parts A through D below. There are 4 parts to this particular problem, and we're going to start with number 1. Now, you have to remember exactly how these things are read. So I'm going to rewrite this so that we can look at it and we can break it down and understand exactly what's going on. This first number is called the quota. That's Q, and it is the quota. These 4 numbers here, these are our weights for each vote or voter. And what we're going to do is we're going to add all of those weights together to get our big V, which is going to be the total number of votes. So don't forget that big V will be equal to total number of votes. And in math terms, they would write it as W sub 1 plus W sub 2 plus W sub 3 plus, and we will go on until we reach the maximum number of weights that we have in here. So for this particular problem, V is going to be equal to the following: 10 plus 6 plus 6 plus 4, which is going to give me 26. We know that Q, the quota, is going to be equal to 16. And then for this particular problem, since we have 4 weights, we will go ahead and write down W sub 1 is equal to 10. W sub 2 will be equal to 6. W sub 3 will be equal to 6 also. And W sub 4 will be equal to 4. Now when we go to start this, we will test the conditions that will satisfy who has a veto. So we need to go ahead and test our conditions. The following 2 conditions must be true in order for one of the players to have veto power. The first condition is this: the W in question must be less than the quota. The second condition is going to be the total number of votes minus the W in question, and that must also be less than the quota. So we're going to do that for each one of our players in the voting system. So we'll start with the first one, A. And you'll see that we've gone ahead and rewritten this, and now we can do our tests. I'm going to set up a table. We're going to start with player number, and then we're going to have player 1, player 2, player 3, and then player 4. We'll go ahead and we will use the following to make sure that we're doing this correctly. And that's going to be W is less than Q. And we want to determine if this is going to be a true or false statement. So we start here with player number 1, which means that we're going to start with W sub 1 is equal to 10. And we're going to test to see if that is less than our quota. And in this case, our quota is 16. So we know that this is in fact a true statement. So that's good. Now we need to test the next statement, which is going to be V minus W, which is going to be less than Q. And I'm going to write this down in the proper format. So V, which is 26, minus the W that we're looking at, which in this case is going to be 10. We want to know if that is less than the Q. And remember that the Q is 16. So what I end up with when I rewrite this and look at this is 26 minus 10 on the left is going to give me 26, and I'm sorry, not 26, but 16 when I do the subtraction. And we want to know if that is going to be less than our Q of 16, and it is not, so this is a false statement. Therefore, number 1 does not have a veto power. Okay? In fact, I could write it as 16 is equal to 16, and that won't work for me. So now we're going to just run through the rest of these. Alright, W sub 2 here is going to be 6, and we need to show that that's less than 16, which in this case it is, so that is a true statement. And then we're going to do 26 minus 16, 26 minus 6. So we have 26 minus 16. Once again, I'm questioning, is that less than 16? And so 26 minus 6 is actually 20. So then we end up with the fact that 20 is actually greater than 16. So that we know that this right here is a false statement. So we'll say that this basically does not work. There is no veto power. Okay, and we're going to keep doing that. So we can see from our chart that none of these tests work, and so therefore do not provide veto power. So no player has veto power. And we'll go ahead and plug that into the problem. So now we know that no player has a veto power, so we'll check this box here and we'll check our answer. And then we will move on to the next one where the quota becomes 19. So really not much changes here, except instead of 16 we're going to be comparing using 19. The number of votes and the weights will not change. They will be exactly the same. So we'll go ahead and work with this one. Remember that W1 is 10, W2 is 6, W3 is 6, and W4 is 4. Our new quota now is 19. So we're just looking at the fact that we want these things to be true statements. And we notice that each one of these in the first column are in fact true statements. So that means we're halfway there to determining whether or not any of these players have veto power. Now remember, we got V minus W here. V is 26 and W is going to be the weight of each individual player. So in this case we're going to have 26 minus 10, which is equal to 16, and that is in fact less than 19. Then we'll have 26 minus 6, which is equal to 20, and that is greater than 19. We'll once again have 26 minus 6, which is also equal to 20, and that's greater than 19. And then we will have 26 minus 4, which is equal to 22, and that is greater than 19. So this is the only one that has veto power. The other three do not. And so we'll go ahead and we'll plug that into the homework. And we see that player 1 with 10 votes has veto power. And then we're moving on to the next one. Alright, continuing on, now we have a new quota, and that quota is going to be 21. You'll notice that the weights for each one of the players does not change. So we're going to start once again with player 1, and we look at W and Q, and 10 is definitely less than 21. So that is a true statement. And then we'll go over here and we'll do 26 minus 10, and we're going to get 16. And that 16 is definitely going to be less than the quota of 21. So that means that player number 1 will have veto power. And then we'll do the same thing here. This is a true statement. 6 is less than 21. 26 minus 6 over here is going to yield 20. And that is also less than 21. which means that player number 2 will have veto power. And then we continue on. And you'll see that for player number 3, they meet the test and they have veto power. But for player number 4, while this statement here is a true statement, this one right here does not follow the criteria. Therefore, this has no veto power. And we can say, instead of saying no player has veto power, we can say that players 1, 2, and 3 will have veto power. So we have, as I said, player 1, 2, and 3 will have veto power. Now for part D, we'll see that the quota has changed from 20 to 25, and the weight of each player's votes has not changed. So V equals 26 is still part of the problem. Q has changed to 25, and as I said, the weights have not changed. You'll note now that if we do the comparison between the weight of each player versus the quota, each one of these will have a less than, so those check, and then we subtract the weight of each player from the total voting, which is 26, and each one of these will be less than the quota of 25, so that all 4 will have veto power. So all 4 players